session. First, we have Ms. Zeta Udine, who has provided us with written testimony, and on the board has been provided with us. So, welcome, Ms. Udine.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I'm so proud about to be here and working with Campaign Finance Board and with the Board of Election. I think this is the first time Bengali translated in the ballot, 61 polling booth in Queens. We are so proud to working with Board of Election, and we got what we want. Thank you. My name is Zeta Udine. I am community leader and activist working at the challenge facing South Asian American community in a variety of areas, including education, employment, poverty, worker rights, voting rights, gender and healthcare and immigration issue. We speak New York City voter education in the context of engaging people for all diversity, faiths, cultural and nationally. These are rights, election, representation. The New York Election Board in constantly changing. Asian American are now the fastest growing racial group in the city, and newly naturalized citizens greatly benefit from Section 203, the Language Assistance Provision of Voting Rights Act. Throughout the five borough interpreters as full size are greatly needed, as so voters limited English proficiency will be able to cast their vote. Minimum cultural intent and listed various Asian American growing segment electoral with the large population first-time voters and foreign-born natural U.S. citizens. Nearly 4 out of 5, 79% of Asian American polled over foreign-born natural U.S. citizens. 10% because of citizens within the past 2 years. Language assistance and bilingual ballots are needed to preserve access to vote of New York City in 5 boroughs. More than one-third, 37% of Asian American voters polled or limited accent proficiency LAP, defined and speak English less than very well. Out of 5, 18% respondents identify English as their native language. Among them, different Asian ethnicity groups polled, Korean American had the highest concentration of LAP voters, with more than half of 67% identify themselves as LAP, followed by the Vietnamese American 59%, Chinese American 55%, Bangladeshi American voters are 45%. As that the Asian LAP voters need help, they do not know the basic information of election. For this, more efforts are needed regarding education them of self-issue of the language, especially in language assistance required under Section 203 of the Voting Rights Act. They need to be educated how, when, where register, who is eligible, when elections are, when primaries are how to vote, who is running, if interpreters of translated materials are available, and whether they are bringing someone with them to help them vote. The Campaign Finance Board published the New York City Voter Guide. It was translated into Bengali but had many errors in it. I bring that this voter guide, which has to be corrected. And inside that, yesterday I took that staples, and they said election board has to be authorized to copy it. Interpreter and translated materials must be provided to LAP voters to Section 203 covered poll site. Even if a poll site is not legally covered under Section 203, the board should recommend request by community-based organization to stop certain poll site with interpreters. All voters should be made aware of the fact that they can be assisted by person of their choice inside the voting booths if they cannot read English or otherwise need assistance. Many voters and poll workers do not know this. Voters and poll workers need to be educated on this provision of law, Section 208 of the Voting Rights Act. I'm just finishing that. I'm not going to more finished, but has to be corrected. The voting right observation has to be last page. The language of the observation about the existing voter guide. The language of the voter guide is lengthy and complex. It needs to be simple and easy for the voters to understand it better. Also, there are mistakes in translating in the guide. The main focus of the guide should be educated to engage the immigrant voters in the voting process in an easy and simple manner. Number 3, they need to be educated on how, when to register, who is eligible, when election, when primaries are, how to vote, who is running, if interpreters of translated materials are available, and whether they can bring someone with them to help them vote. These are the things we should be given top priority in the guide, not the candidate's profile. A total new guide is needed to fulfill the purpose where voter information should be given main focus, and photos and sample ballots can be used to make it easy. Candidate profiles should not be included in the guide. Profiles can be given as a separate booklet in fold times. This will make the guide handy and useful to the voters. This guide should be general guide to be used in all the elections that are held in USA or New York City for all the voters. Thank you. And recently, we established in ASAL organization new immigration manual book in Bengali translated in 8 languages. Bengali was one of these, and I think we can help translated election voter guide. If you're giving us the chance, we can do that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Our final testifier, I'm sorry, did anyone have questions? I'm sorry. No, we're done. I don't think anyone had a question for you. Thank you, Mr. Dean. Our final testifier is Steve Kramer. Welcome, Mr. Kramer.
Thank you. Did everybody hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be brief here today, and I plan to submit some testimony. I just got back from Albany, so it's been a rough day. This past cycle, I worked with 36 of the winning 51 council members. I indirectly or directly helped that number of people. We do 59 members of Congress with my firm get out the vote. So I stand before you today as someone who has a lot of experience within the campaign world, having dealt with the Board of Elections and the the Campaign Finance Board here in New York City on almost a daily occasion in many cases. I can tell you that the CFB does an excellent job. You really, from a candidate services and from being able to work with the treasurers, I think you really go the extra mile, and I personally appreciate it. I did not find and do not find that being the case at the Board of Elections, which I have separate specific issues with. The integrity of this board, I think, is unquestioned. I think the backgrounds of each of you stand not only on paper but in practice, both on an investigative side as well as on an ethical side, in being able to root out different things that are happening, be able to give advice to people to go ahead and follow the rule of the law as well as the spirit of the law. However, I think that there is a lack of campaign experience. And when I say campaign experience, I don't mean from an oversight perspective. I mean from being in the industry, knowing exactly what to expect, what loopholes they're looking at or trying to use in order to be able to circumvent the law or circumvent, let's say, upcoming law, which might be practiced more in Albany. It's frustrating to me sometimes because I think that there is just a minor gap in having someone among your board that you can all refer to and say, geez, how are they going to get bias on this one? Well, what can we do to prevent it? To that end, I'm sure other consultants would do the same. A quick call from any of you to my office, and I can assure you you'll get a call right back on anything you're looking to know regarding anything that's going on within your purview. Third, and this will be my last point of the day, is I think that because not just of the outside money that has come in to New York politics, but because the continued flow of what will be in the next cycles to come, I encourage you strongly to raise the amount of money that is available to candidates, both in its level, maybe to get them up to $250,000, which I think would be a modest raise, but also to award that money a little earlier. There's a real rush to spend in that week before the primary because, quite frankly, sometimes you're administering that money on the Thursday or the Friday beforehand. Because of that amount of cash flow, I think that treasurers get overwhelmed. I think that a lot of times the different consultants who are out there or different other people who are working on there don't even know if they have a job on the Monday beforehand because they don't know if they've got the money to pay people. So I think that and I know you have a schedule of how those payments go out, but maybe to back it up a little bit if you could, so that way as soon as someone does make the ballot and is certified to be the candidate, they get their first payment or whatever they may qualify for. I'm open to any questions.
Does anyone have questions? I actually have a question about that timing because it's something that we've talked about here. And I mean, we generally give the payments pretty much within a day or so of the Board of Election certifying the ballot. And I guess, so, I mean, not everybody qualifies on the first payment, of course, but, the majority of candidates get their money that first payment. And I was wondering, are you talking about earlier? Because it's hard to decide who to give money to at that point.
I mean, it sometimes just, they don't even know if they're going to get approved by you sometimes because of whatever's going on with their specific issues on their particular reports. Having a faster, okay, you're going to be able to be approved by this time, we know this is going to happen. It gives them an opportunity to be more genuine with the people that they're working with on the other side. But by the same token, having more money available to them, let's say even earlier, and having the smallest of the payments come at the last portion, if that's possible. I know that works out that way sometimes, but I can tell you from a campaign flow, having all of that money come in from that last week of July or maybe sometimes the first week of August when everything is certified and maybe they passed the judge or whatever they had to do to stay on the ballot. I think it's incumbent because now you have everything being spent at the end of the summer in a short window where not everybody's here, so what everybody does is back it up to the last 2 weeks, and then it becomes a real mess. And then the after portion, and I'm sure Susan and some of the other people today have spoken about this, it gets messy, and that's why you need that form afterwards to see where that money got spent, even if the public doesn't get to see it until afterwards, which is unfortunate. So I hope that answered your question.
That did, yes.
Anybody else? I actually kind of was hoping, Richard, you were going to ask me a question. I've never been asked a question by a Watergate investigator before, so I thought that would be great. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So that concludes our hearing. Thank you for everyone who testified, all the panelists and the board for their attention, all the people who sat in the audience all day. And I think we've learned a lot, and we're able to proceed to prepare our post-election hearing.